So of course we have the 5.2 V8, one of my favorite engines. I love to work on these. Your water pump pulley is right there. And here is your clutch fan. And then you have your fan shroud. Now the clutch fan and the fan shroud have to come out at the same time. So you got to take off these two 15mm nuts. And then we got to get the fan shroud unscrewed from the pulley, or sorry, the fan clutch. And then you got to lift them both out at the same time. The way to take the fan clutch off is you take a 1.5-inch wrench, you stick it on the nut right there, and then you smack the top of the wrench while putting some pressure on it counterclockwise, and eventually she'll come right off. I find this way the easiest way and a lot quicker than renting that special fan clutch tool, because sometimes those don't even fit. So let's get going. And she is loose. So now unbolt the fan shroud. These ones aren't very tight at all. This helps if you have skinny arms like me. If you got bigger arms, it's a little more of a pain, but it's still doable. Once those nuts are off, you're just gonna reach your hands down either side of the shroud and slowly start untwisting. Once you got your clutch off of the water pump, reach in from the top and grab the blades. Makes it a lot easier. And then you have to make sure that you get the fan shroud over these studs right here that actually hold it in. And then just lift them out. Way more room now that everything's out of our way. So the next couple of steps, need to get our belt off. This is your tensioner pulley. It's a 15mm bolt. Get a socket on there with a longer handled ratchet preferably. Pull it over to the right as far as you can. Pop your belt off. Then we have the lower radiator hose. Pull it off at the water pump side. You have this little heater hose. Just loosen the clamp. It'll slide off once you get the bolts out of the water pump. And then we have this heater core line. It's a hard steel line. It's this one 15mm bolt right here. And then you're just gonna have to kind of wiggle it back and forth, be gentle with it until it pops out. And that one slid out a little too easy. This O-ring was never replaced. So these have an O-ring on them. You always want to replace those before you put them back in. Otherwise it just starts sliding in and out and doesn't even seal. So you'll just take a pick, pop that O-ring out, slip another one on there. Sometimes the water pumps come with them, but most of the time they don't. You got to go buy them separately or just take that off, go to the auto parts store and find one that fits. Easiest to pull it off the alternator first so that you can actually have room to get your hand back once it retracts. Please excuse the chicken outside the garage door. She is just begging for treats. Anyways, belt comes off. And then we actually want to remove this pulley too. Just the same 15mm bolt. This will just make it easier, give you a little more room. If you really wanted to, you could take all these accessories off, but there's really no need to. It's just more work for you and it doesn't really make your life any easier. Your water pump has 7 14mm bolts holding it in, 4 on top, 3 on bottom. There are 2 different lengths, so just keep track where each one goes. With that off, carefully take a razor blade and scrape any residue off the mounting surface. You want it to be as smooth as possible. Try not to score it or scrape it too much so that when it goes on, it seals good. One other thing, corrosion likes to build up in a lot of these pockets over here. So what I'll do is I'll just take an air compressor and I'll blow out everything I can, then wipe it out with a paper towel, just get it all nice and clean for the new water pump. Okay, so I got the side that goes onto the water pump held on with gasket sealer. The other side, you shouldn't need it. Take 2 of our bolts and get this thing set in place. Make sure the bolts are clean like I didn't do. Kind of want to treat this like if you're putting a wheel on a car. You just do it in a star pattern, basically. Once you got the pump back on and all the bolts in, get them all snug before we torque them. Your water pump bolts are 30 foot-pounds. Once you get those snugged up, you can get them torqued down. Want to get the hoses back on now. So for this guy, like I said, usually your new water pumps come with an O-ring for them. These can be tricky to get out, but if you have a pick, it makes it a little easier. Just get the pick under it, hook it, pull it off, and it flings somewhere in the garage where you're never gonna find it again. Take your new O-ring, and drop it in. Pulley is on. Now finish putting your belt on. If you need to remember how it goes, your fan shroud has a diagram for that. Fan shroud, I took the upper radiator hose off because it helps the fan shroud slip down easier. Same way you took it off. Get the fan shroud where you want it. Hold your clutch from above. Slide them both down together. It's gonna be a little bit of a pain. And then once you get down to here, make sure you pop it over that lip. Fan shroud's in place, and be really careful screwing it back on. It might take a couple tries. So now that everything's back together, grab the biggest funnel you can find, stick it in the top of the radiator, and we're gonna start filling up, and hopefully you don't start hearing any drips underneath the car. If you're cheap like me and you run out of coolant, you'll just start using some water. So once you're done filling it up, start the car, leave the funnel in the radiator, so cap off, let it warm up, and that allows the coolant to be pulled down into the motor once the thermostat opens up, and then you can keep topping it off until it stops pulling it all away. And that allows you to get all the air out of the system, and you should be good to go after that. So thanks for watching. Hope this helped you with your project. We'll see you next time.